Eric Bischoff was the one running it that night.
Right.
So he comes up, he goes, look, he goes, you guys are going to ride out on each side of them. You're going to go around the ring, get off your bikes, you're going to stand there. He goes, but these guys are bad guys, so they might start throwing things at them, and they might, you might get hit. I said, let me tell you something, Eric. I said, if myself or any one of my brothers get hit with anything, we're going to start stabbing and slabbing people.
Oh, shit.
He goes, you know what? Don't even stop. Go around the ring and go right back into that.
Oh, what's your story? Don't you dare be sour. Clap for Stephanie and feel the power.
Welcome to What's Your Story with Steph McMahon, a WWE and Fanatics original production. I mean, of course, you've had this remarkable life, right? And so many things that people don't know about you, and a lot of things that they do know about you. And the name of this show is What's Your Story? So it's,
What's
you
my
know, that's
story?
what we want to hear is
I've got a few.
all about your stories. Yeah. And where you come from and, you know, the lessons you learned from your parents. And I know your mom is, you know, still here and
Yes, my
doing
mom's
well?
94.
94.
Wow.
God bless
94,
her.
and she's at assisted living place called Gerwin in Comac.
And does she
because-
still have
Yeah,
her
oh yeah,
mental?
of course, yeah.
Okay, that's great.
And she has her own apartment. She has
Yeah.
everything. So, but she's a walker now.
Yeah.
So
94.
when she lived at a after retirement place in Long Island also, but she lived alone and she used to have to dump her garbage and everything. And she fell twice, so we
Oh,
said,
that's
you know
no
what?
good. Yeah.
And my sister lives 5 minutes from us, so she checks up on her every day. And I go there, you know, probably 3 times a week and see her there.
Because you're a good son.
And yeah, I'm the middle, so I'm the favorite. And I have 2 sisters, so I'm the favorite. That's what I tell them anyway.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. Yeah, that's what my oldest always says is she's the favorite.
But you know, it's all right. I mean, she's like I said, they go to the cafeteria for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and she sits with the same 4 people all the time. So, being 94, I'm blessed that we still have
Yeah,
her.
absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
my dad died at 78. He remarried, and she took him away from the family because it was a long
okay.
time since I saw him.
Okay.
So, you
How
know.
old were you when that happened?
Well, he died in 98, so I'm 73 now. So,
Right?
you know, it was pretty well because the sad thing. I will go back into that. You know, I haven't talked to him in 13 years,
Right?
so that was the you know,
When he passed, you hadn't?
yeah.
Do you
So I thought
regret
he'd live
that?
forever. Yeah, I regretted it.
Yeah.
I regretted it because you know, next thing you know, because she didn't tell our family until after he was buried. Everything.
Really?
Yeah. So, but it was a long story. I you know, I don't know where you want to start, but you know,
It's
I
up
did.
to you.
You know, in,
I'm gonna dig, Chuck, so you go ahead.
1985, they had a big. I was in Tokyo, Japan at the time, with another Hell's Angel. And
This is where you surrendered.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
So they had a big nationwide sweep against the Hells Angels, and myself and Bert, we were in Japan already. So we surrendered to the American Embassy. And they said they'd ship us, you know, back that same day. And then they came back. It was funny because they had Marines, you know, guarding the doors for me and
Right.
him. And they came back and said, "Look, we can't keep you. You have to leave." I said, "What do you mean? You can't keep us?"
Yeah.
I says, "Is the Japanese police waiting for us outside?" They says, "Yes." I says, "Fine, then you hand us over to Japanese police
Yeah.
to show us that we surrendered." And the thing
That's
about
smart.
it, which was smarter, we did an interview with CNN News before we surrendered to show
Yeah.
they
This
were.
is what's
you know,
happening.
we were in a cab. They were a cab behind us, showed us going there, surrendering and everything.
Wow.
Because we, you know, if we didn't, they would say they caught us.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well, and who knows
And-
how you would have been treated too.
yeah. So we thought we were going the next day, and they handed us over to Japanese police, and we were in Japanese prison for 4 months waiting to be extradited. And I never saw Bert. He was on one floor, I was on the other.
And also you said you were in a really small cell.
Yeah. Well,
What
That
was
crazy.
it?
It was like a 6x9 cell, just
and
enough
you
for a
said
bed.
23 hours a day.
23 hours a day, and they let you out for an hour. So they put you in a cage outside, and I was allowed to,
Oh, you're still in a cage. It's not a yard,
No, where you could walk around. There's a cage,
but you just got to be outside
maybe a quarter size of this place, so
for 4 months.
be outside, yeah.
So
once.
what was your mental talk? Like, how do you get through that? You know,
it was,
'cause, I
it
mean,
was
I
kinda
imagine
crazy.
that's
It
quite a
was-
trip,
it was,
right?
Yeah, it was. Nobody spoke English there. We were
Right.
the only Americans. I never saw Bert, and we used to have an interpreter come. He called me Mr. Charles, Mr. Charles. They used to call me Rambo in there. I
bet.
looked like Sly,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
when I was down in the yard, in the cage, I used to do my shadow box and everything, skip rope, a
Yeah.
lot of rope, and everybody else used to call you Rocky. So it was pretty wild. But I hardly ate there because they had all kinds of crazy food. Things crawling around inside. I said, nah, I'm not eating
Ooh.
that. So I lived on 3 slices of white bread and water a day.
How much weight did you lose?
Actually, I gained because the water,
Really?
the white bread expands, and I was doing 1,000 push-ups, 1,000 sit-ups a day.
So that's
Yeah.
part of how you did it.
And the crazy part, you were allowed to work out to the music, and it was Judy Garland, Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
Really?
Yeah.
Very random.
That is
And-
not what I would imagine.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
just a song. She wasn't,
Yeah,
it
no,
was a
Yeah.
song, Somewhere Over the Rainbow. So you do for 15 minutes.
Right?
I'd work out 8 hours a day.
Right.
And it was funny because I was just doing my push-ups and everything. And the guy comes in, Mr. Charles, no workout, no work, only to music, only to music.
Oh, they tried.
I
to
said, what are you going to
dictate.
do? Come in here? No, I don't come in. You going to come in here? No, like, then, fuck
Right,
off and get
right.
out of here.
Get outta here.
Leave me alone. I heard you were allowed to curse in here. so
Yes, yes, you're totally allowed to curse.
I had to ask because sometimes I gotta watch what I say.
Nope.
And I think, so especially when I do the AM radios and all, you can't curse. So okay,
Oh, yeah, you
because
can
that
curse.
comes out automatically.
Yeah, I get it.
Boom.
Yeah.
So 4 months later, we were
But
extradited.
wait, so
boom.
let's go back to Judy Garland. So what happens to you now if you hear Somewhere Over the Rainbow? Like,
I love it.
do you go right back there, or
nah.
is it a good thing? Or
You know what?
did it help you get through to hear something familiar?
Look, after I came home, we were extradited back, and we were sent. 4 marshals came to get me. I was on a regular flight, commercial flight, and it was crazy because when I surrendered, I had a flag T-shirt on, and I had long hair. I had a red bandana.
Yeah.
You know.
Looking
And,
every bit the part. Yeah.
So when they picked me up, they said, you got to take that shirt off. They made me take the shirt off. They gave me a shirt. I had a flag shirt when they were
Right.
extradited me. And so we get on the plane first. And the stewardess comes, can I help you? I said, yeah, you got a hacksaw? Because they had my hands covered
Cuffed.
with a jacket.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I took it off. They said, don't be a wise guy, sit down there. So I had 4 guys around me the whole time. 16-hour flight all the way back.
But I bet, were you happy to be getting out of Japanese prison?
Well, look, like I said, we were locked down there. We got back to MCC, and there was pool tables, color TV. I thought it was at a hotel.
Right?
I said,
Yeah.
wow, this
a
is great.
step up.
The food
Yeah.
was probably better.
So it was pretty well when I got back. But then I was, when Rex started back. Then they said I got arrested. They said I made a telephone call to a guy who sold a pound of methamphetamine.
Right.
That's what I was arrested for.
Yeah. And you
So
said
it's
you never
really a
made that
4-year
call.
count. And I was in British Columbia making a movie with Mickey Rourke at the time with a phone call. And
Yeah.
I showed them my hotel receipts, everything. But they want you, they're going to get you.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
the feds are after you, they're going to get you. And they wanted me because I was,
They wanted
You
you
know,
to rat, right?
they wanted me to talk about my friends and all that. Just told them to go fuck themselves and all that stuff. And when
you
we
did
came
the
back,
time.
they wanted us all to take a plea. And they were going to give me a year and Bert 3 years. And I already did 4 months, so I had to
Right.
do another 4 months. I would have got out. But we were tough guys. We're not pleading anything. I don't care, blah, blah, blah. And when we finally went to, to get sentenced, I got 10 years. He got 14 years. We says, oh, we showed them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So it was a little hard. So I did
And you were in 19 prisons?
19 different prisons I went to in 6 years. did.
Because you'd get in fights? Is that
Yeah,
right?
every time you have a fight, you get separated, so there's no repercussions and all. So
Is that like a
both
record?
of these get separated.
Yeah. Is that some kind of record?
Yeah,
Someone
yeah,
going to 19
So I
different
had
prisons?
10 good fights in prison.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I got transferred a lot. Con Air.
What was your favorite prison?
I was going to ask that.
You don't get a favorite, but Otisville I was at my last one because it was close to my family. It was in Westchester, so. But then they had a food strike there, and they blamed me for the food strike, and I get transferred again out to Louisiana, Oakdale, Louisiana, and that's where they had the riots and everything, and I was transferred there to my last one.
And how
So-
are you, like, because all I know is what I see in TV and movies, right? Like, how are you, what's the number one rule of survival in prison? Like, what do you want to be known? Do you not want to be known?
Well,
Is it important to, like,
it's
have a group of
it's not
people?
about being known, but, because everyone knows where you are, what you do, and everything else, but, people,
'cause you
hang
seem
out
like
with
you
your friends,
stand
just hang
out,
out,
you
with,
know?
yeah.
That's what I mean.
I went to a lot of. Don't forget, there was 33 Hells Angels. Out of 150 people arrested, there was 33
Yeah.
Hells Angels. So a lot of times you went to a prison where I went to El Reno prison. There was 3 Hells Angels there.
Okay. Do the movies get it right at all?
The movies,
Yeah.
sometimes, sometimes.
But Oz,
But
right?
it
was
it-
Oz
it
more
was
like
crazy because I got it after 6 years. I went to watch the Don King story,
Mm-hmm.
only in America. And when my friend Brian Hamill used to do all the photography for all the movies.
it? Right?
And he, after 5 minutes, the projector breaks and the house lights went on, and he brings me over and introduced me to Tom Fontana, who was a producer and director and the writer of Oz. And he was with Dean Winters. And he goes, this is Chuck Zito. He just got out of prison. Maybe he could, advise you on some, technical advice and everything. He goes, look, you got a great face. Do you act? Of course. Meanwhile, I never acted in my life.
Yeah.
So he goes, I want you to come down and read for Oz. So I went down the next day, actually. And I beat like 20 guys out for the part. And I got, the guy's name was Sam Pancamo,
The character.
the character's name. When I got the part, they changed it to Chucky Pancamo.
Yeah.
That's great.
It's great.
Yeah.
Sounds better anyway.
So
Yeah.
I wound up, after doing 6 years in prison, working on the prison show. Go figure.
You knew it best, right?
And
Yeah.
it was on 12th Street, 9th Avenue. It was a Chelsea Market building. People thought it was a real prison. We were on the 6th floor, and they made a
Wow.
makeshift prison up there. It was-
And did you get any flashbacks?
It was great. Yeah, so what happened my first day on the set, I'm in my cell. I'm supposed to be sleeping, and they got an inmate walks in, and so I'm sleeping, and I looked up, and I looked around, and I saw the cells, and I saw, man, I thought I was back in jail.
Oh.
And then the guy woke me up, he comes back, he goes, so you're up in 15 minutes. I says, phew, yeah. So after getting
had
out of
a
prison,
moment.
and then getting a show on TV about a prison.
That's
And
insanity.
it was pretty wild. So I was Chucky Pancamo, the head of the Sicilian mob.
We talk a lot about iconic stories on this show. And when it comes to sports entertainment or professional wrestling, no stories are bigger than the ones written by WWE legends. Superstars like Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock, trailblazers like Trish Stratus, and factions like the NWO and DX. Their legacies are unforgettable. And if you want to wear that history, you need the real deal. That's why you've got to check out WWE Shop and Fanatics. They have the ultimate lineup of official WWE Legends merchandise. We're talking classic graphic tees, premium vintage hoodies, and retro gear. Whether you're hitting a live show or just repping your favorite era on the street, Fanatics has you covered. Don't wait. Head over to WWEshop.com and Fanatics.com right now and grab your favorite Legends gear. So what was the scariest, worst fight you were in prison, and why? And I don't mean why, like whatever you're comfortable telling, but like
On the street or in jail or
anywhere, I guess, if something comes
well,
to
I had
mind.
quite a few ones on the street. So
Well, I mean, I ran into you like about a year ago, and your knuckles were all swollen and red.
yeah. I
Many
get into a
fights,
few
but
fights.
like, does any of them stand out to you for any particular reason?
No, to me, fight's a fight.
It just is what it is.
Yeah.
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 What's the number one rule in a fight?
Hit first.
I wondered if that's what you were gonna say.
Hit
Yeah.
first before you get hit.
Yeah.
You're eyeball with somebody.
You know what's
You're
going
not going
down.
to say, hey,
And is there a
Number one
particular?
rule.
Do you punch him in the nose? Do you chin him? Does it just
I
depend
hit
on
them
the
right on the chin,
circumstance?
right on the butt, and they go out.
Mm.
Usually last one shot.
Yeah.
So,
If you know what you're doing.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I had a fight in a China club with a guy, and it lasted a long time. I got hit over the head with a champagne bottle like 6 times, split my head
Oh.
open.
The bottle
It was pretty-
broke.
Huh? No, it never broke.
Oh.
Those things are hard.
Oh yeah, no, that's why I asked.
Yeah,
Yeah,
those
I
things
assumed
are
when you
hard,
said
yeah.
it's split open, maybe
so
it.
I
yeah.
got 26
Ugh.
stitches in the head, and he bit my finger to the bone, and I had a splint on here, so I got 4 stitches in the finger. That was a pretty wild fight.
Sounds
Lasted a
wild.
long time.
That sounds
So,
wild. So what's
it
a
was
long
2
time
fights.
for a fight?
Huh?
What's a long time for a fight? Like 10 minutes?
No. Usually on the street, it's
Pretty quick.
5.
pretty quick.
Yeah.
You know? But that fight was about at least 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was pretty.
That's
he was a tough
rough.
kid from Brooklyn, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And did he earn your respect?
Huh? He went back to prison, and we saw each other at a restaurant, and we just both because I found out his mom died while he was away, and I sent him my condolences. He found out about it, and we saw each other in a restaurant, and that's it. We hugged and kissed each other. It was over. No more.
That's kind of beautiful, right?
Yeah.
You could work out
Yeah.
your differences,
Yes.
whatever they were.
Yes.
Who would you say won that fight?
The
Like
fight
at
with
the
him?
end. Yeah, the fight with him. Because
Well,
you
I
got
didn't
hit
have
in
a
the
mark
head
on
with
me,
6
so
bottles.
I just got a mark, from the bottle over my head. So
Yeah, were
was
you
pretty
knocked
bruised
out?
up.
In the
No?
finger?
no.
No.
Oh, and me?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No, they hit me over the
You had
head.
a hard
and I'd
head.
say, "Who was that?"
Yeah.
And then, you know what? The sad thing, the crazy thing about it, you feel a little blood coming down.
Yeah.
Headshots.
Yeah.
It's all warm blood coming
Yeah.
down too. Yeah. And it was just all by my back of my head, and I had my Hell's Angel patch on. You couldn't even read Hell's Angels; it was all just blood.
Makes the patch cooler though.
Pretty well.
Yeah.
No. My patch got dirty. I got a new one.
Oh,
I
really?
was
Oh,
always
so that was like a
immaculate.
thing.
Always immaculate. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like a uniform. You want to keep it
Yeah.
looking sharp.
Absolutely. So, things like that happen. And, I knew your dad and your brother for a long time. Actually, I think we met in we had a meeting like 80 or 81 at Smith and Lewinsky's.
Yeah.
Yes. I rode up on my bike, went in there, walked in with you, and sat with your dad and your brother. And what they wanted to do, they wanted to make the Hells Angels as big as the WWE. They
Wow.
wanted to bring, make, bicycles for kids and Halloween.
Oh, really? Merchandise
costume.
it.
Yeah, merchandising.
Yeah, wow.
Yes. He wanted to do the whole thing.
Huh.
And anything. I mean, pool tables.
Right, sure, of course.
Anything.
Yeah.
Anything. Sneakers and bedspreads and Hell's
That sounds
Angels and motorized bikes and
Sure.
what else? Halloween costumes for
Yeah.
the kids. And
Yeah.
I said, well, to me, that's badass.
yeah.
Kid going to the store, hey, Mama, you give me that Hell's Angel, Halloween thing back in the day and everything else. So, of course, I brought it back to the club
Right.
and say, look, they want to get, make this thing as big as WWF. What do you want? What do they get? I said, well, they get half and we get half. And all the old guys were saying, hey, you know what? We didn't become the biggest and baddest club for no reason. So we're not selling our name and everything else. Nothing ever happened of it.
Wow.
Today, every one of them would have been a billionaire.
Yeah.
Forget
right?
about it.
Forget
40 years
about it.
later. 40 years later.
Yeah.
But the old guy says no. The new guys wanted to do it, but the older guy said no. But to me, to go in the store and see a kid wanting a Halloween costume,
Right.
or seeing a motorized bike, and it didn't have to be like our patch.
Sure.
It could have just been just a Hell's Angel on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But back in the day,
So then is that
nobody wanted to sell a name.
so what else happened in terms of wrestling? Like, was that your first sort of exposure to wrestling, or when did you get involved?
I actually, and I always credit Terry, Hulk, because being Thunder Lips and Rocky, I thought he brought wrestling back.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to watch wrestling when I was a kid, but with guys like Antonino Rocca, who
Yep.
never wore shoes. And,
Yeah.
And guys like that. And I was always fascinated by it. But then after watching, Hulk Hogan on Rocky, and playing Thunder Lips, I think it brought wrestling back to the community.
Right.
And that's why he got so big. And he was great. And look, Terry was, the
Yeah. Hulk
number
Hogan.
one guy for the.
He sure
Hulk
was.
Hogan was it, and still.
Oh, so what's your beef with Andre?
Oh, so anyway, I was at WrestleMania 1.
Right? I was there too, by the
with
way.
everybody. You were a little younger.
Yeah, I was 8.
And so was I. That was what,
85?
85.
Yeah.
85, just before
Same-
we went to
yeah.
prison. And you had everybody there. Come on, Liberace,
Yeah.
Billy Martin.
Yep. Cindy Lauper,
Muhammad Ali, Cindy
Yeah.
Lauper, Mr. T.
Yeah.
I mean, plus all the biggest, wrestlers at the time.
Yep.
It was just great. It was awesome.
It was.
And I had a great time. And I brought my friend Bert with me, and he had his son. And his son was only like maybe 5 years old, if that. And at the end of the show, we went down to the back, through the back where the elevator is.
Right.
Where everybody goes downstairs. So we're there waiting for the elevator. All of a sudden, Andre comes walking up with Mean Gene.
Yeah.
And Bert goes to him. He goes, and we had our patches on. We
Sure,
had our Hells
sure.
Angel jackets on. And Bert goes, hey, Andre, can you say hello to my son? He goes, leave me alone. He goes, look, if you don't like me, at least say hello to my son. I said, leave me alone. Bert pulled out his knife and was going to stab him right in the eye.
Oh, shit.
And Mean Gene goes, no knives, no knives. And I'm saying, this guy's going to grab Bert. I'm going to have to jump on his back. But everything was calmed down after that, but Bert was pissed.
I bet.
And he was
yeah.
just, there was no need for it.
Yeah.
And ever since that, I wasn't an Andre fan. Before
Yeah.
I was when I saw him wrestle, but after that elevator thing, and Mean Gene yelling, no knives, oh my God.
I'm glad
I
that
always
worked.
remember that. You
I
know?
guess so.
Not,
yeah.
not Gene, 'cause I never really saw him after that. But that
Yeah.
was the first time that the five of
Well,
us.
everybody has their own
Yeah.
experience, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
and you
ours
build
was,
your
ours
perspective
wasn't
off
a
of
good
that.
one.
Yeah. That's too
But
bad. I'm sorry.
Everybody else, no, that's all right. It's just, things at the time. And
Yeah.
but he could have said hello to the kid.
Yeah.
And he didn't have to do nothing, just say hello.
Well, and usually
We didn't have cameras,
Yeah.
we never walked
no,
around with
and
cameras and
usually
say,
our
hey, you want...
talent are like,
Yeah.
especially for the kids, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think
he
it
was
just must have been a
I
bad
think because
moment.
he saw who we were, he was just a little, can I say intimidated? I don't know. The guy was,
Yeah, maybe.
600 pounds, who knows? And I'm saying to myself, boy, Bert's going to pull this guy. I got to jump on his back, this guy. He's going to throw Bert against the elevator. And that was our experience with Andre. And I was never a fan after that.
Well,
So
that's too bad. I don't know if it was, Andre just got, and I'm not making excuses, but
Yeah.
he got bothered a lot because of his size.
right.
That's too bad. I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. It's all right. That was a long time ago. We're talking.
But so you were
Over
telling
40
a
years ago.
story on a podcast. Yeah, but still, you remember it clearly?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
How could you forget that
Bothered
one?
you. Yeah. And for Bert to pull a knife. So what kind of knife?
That was a buck knife. A lot of guys used to carry knives.
Yeah.
And he pulled it out, and he was ready.
I like that Gene was able to just say no and it stopped. Cause
Yeah. But Gene got all
Wouldn't it?
crazy. He said, oh, no. And Bert said, I'll stab you right in the eye, man.
And yeah.
So, At least he didn't get stabbed, so
Yeah, hey, that's a win.
that's a good one.
Sight
So
is important.
I have another a story with when Terry Hulk Hogan. I keep calling him Terry,
You can call
but
him Terry.
huh?
The audience
Yeah.
knows.
He calls me up, and it's a Saturday, and he goes, "Hey, brother," he goes, "I need like 20 Hell's Angels, to walk us in the ring, Monday Night Raw."
Yeah.
And I says, "Terry, it's Saturday, and it's in the middle of winter." So, of course, we weren't riding. It was snow
Right,
and everything.
yeah.
And he goes, "I'm going to send a truck for you." I said, "Okay." So I got 18 of us total. I got guys from New York, from my charter which was the Nomads, and Kentucky and Chicago, South Carolina. I got a bunch of guys together. And we took the bikes out of the truck, of course. We got rode. There was 8 of us on each side, and or 9 of us. I think there was like 18 of us. It was probably 9 of us on each side, and then Hulk comes out of the limo, and I'm sure you saw. I don't know if you
Yeah,
ever
of
saw.
course,
It was
yeah.
great. It was the greatest entrance, I think. So what happens is, Eric Bischoff was the one running it that night.
Right?
So he comes up. He goes, "Look," he goes, "you guys are going to ride out on each side of them. You're going to go around the ring, get off your bikes. You're going to stand there and just watch them the whole time." He goes, "But these guys are bad guys, so they might start throwing things at them, and they might you might get hit." I said, "Let me tell you something, Eric." I said, "If myself or any one of my brothers get hit with anything, we're going to start stabbing and slabbing people."
Oh, shit.
He goes, "You know what? Don't even stop. Go around the ring and go right back in the back."
Get out of there right away.
That's what we
Well,
did.
hang on. We got a merchandiser shirt right now. Stabbing
Stabbing
and
and
slabbing. That's the
That's it.
greatest thing I think
So-
I've heard.
We went around twice around the ring, and they were even saying, "There's Chuck Zito," and the other guys, "Who's Chuck Zito?" Of course, they know. He's the one. He's the head of the Hell's Angels. I mean, one of the Hell's Angels. He goes, and we went around twice, and we just went right in the back.
Yeah.
But we were supposed to stand there the whole time,
Much more better.
the whole time watching them wrestle and everything.
Yeah.
But once you start saying that,
Yeah.
he goes, "You know what? Don't even stop. Go around the ring
Just
Yeah.
keep
and,
going.
and go
Just-
back in the back."
Yeah,
like a
it's more of
liability.
the presence.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the crazy part about it, as we walk out, I mean, they're walking out, we're riding out.
Right?
Everybody starts cheering, and Terry's going, Hulk's going. He goes, "That's supposed to be cheering for us,
Well, how
When
could
they saw
that's a
us,
huge babyface entrance.
when they saw us, they started cheering. When
Of
they saw the
course.
Hells Angels,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it was crazy. The whole
Yeah.
crowd just changed.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
And so unexpected too.
Yeah.
But yeah.
We had a great time. It was a great night. It was a great. I think the rest. Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
There we go. That's Mel right there, from Illinois.
That's so
That's
cool.
awesome.
You know,
Yeah, it was
we
great,
ripped off
right
this
there.
idea a little bit. Paul and I, Hunter and I, had an entrance at WrestleMania with a female biker gang.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, not Hell's Angels.
That's my
obviously.
friend
Charlie's
Chris. He was
Angels.
also
Yeah.
a jiu-jitsu instructor right there. That's me right there with my bike.
Badass.
So
There's
cool.
Mel. So that was the greatest entrance. I think it was awesome.
That's so cool. So
Yeah.
cool.
And still today, we get so many hits on that.
I bet.
There's millions and millions of hits on that.
It's super
And
cool.
people saying, till this day, they say it was the greatest wrestler.
Well, you
I
coulda-
mean, the greatest entrance.
You could have merchandised right off that.
I think they should have left you
Bischoff
out
wasn't
there.
thinking. Yeah.
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 But it was funny when he came up to me and he just said, they'll start throwing things. I was about to tell you what. And that's when I told him.
I don't
he
think
goes,
they
"You know
would
what?
have given you got the pop, but
Yeah.
yeah. It
goes,
used to happen.
Don't even stop. Go right back, go around the ring and go right back inside, he goes.
Well, he was smart about that. That's for sure.
But we had a great time. It was
Yeah.
a great time, and it was a hell of an entrance. And, myself
There's
and
nothing
Hulk
like the
been
feel of the
years
crowd, right?
For a long time. Actually, when I first met, Hulk, I was at a restaurant, and he was sitting there with your dad eating. And it was right after Rocky. And I went up to him. I says, "Yo, can I get that Polaroid now?" And he looked at me and goes, "Man, you look like Sly." And that's how we became friends.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. I used to, there was a place called Cafe Central where all the celebrities used to go to also. It wasn't there, though. But I started going there, and a story about that, too, was pretty, how I got there. I I was at the Academy of Music watching the first Duran Leonard fight with John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd.
Wow.
That's amazing.
So
Wait, you're just there with them? Are you bodyguarding
no,
for them?
with them. They
You're
were
just with
friends.
them.
They were
Okay,
friends of the
okay.
club. They were friends with Sandy Alexander, who was the president of New York City, also a stuntman in the movie business. That's how I got started.
Right?
And we were watching, the boxing. Then afterwards, at the end, they says, we're going to go up to Cafe Central. It's a bar. I said, I don't drink. I never drank in my life. And I don't like the hangout place. I don't know. He goes, no, this is a different place. It's all movie stars, all ballerinas, all girls. I said, you talked me into it. So I went up there with them. And of course, I had my Hell's Angel patch on. So I go in there with them, and wherever you looked, there was 5, 6, 10 celebrities at one time. I went in there. Cher was there. Liza Minnelli was there. Peter Riegert. John Goodman, guys like that. They were all there. Treat Williams.
The biggest
And
stars
I'm looking
at the
over there,
time.
and Bruce Willis was the bartender.
Wow.
So I'm looking, I said, wow, I didn't know Bruce was just a regular guy then. So and I'm looking around, I said, wow, this is crazy. So they start walking, I went another way, I'm walking around, looking around, and all of a sudden a guy comes up to me, Paul Herman. He was the maitre d'. And he goes, hey, how are you? My name's Paul Herman. I'm a maitre d' of, Cafe Central here. We're going to have to ask you to take your patch off because you're scaring the customers, And my boss told me to come up to you. That's what he said. He says, my boss told me to come up to you and ask me to take your jacket off. I said, I don't take my jacket off for anybody. He goes, well, you're going to have to leave then. I says, I leave when my friends leave. I came in with 2 friends. When they go, I'm going. So then I said, you tell your boss to come see me. So this little guy comes up named Peter Herrera. He goes, what's the problem? I said, you tell me. I said, this guy's telling me to take my jacket off. He goes, well, you're scaring my customers. I says, well, I didn't intend to do that, but I don't take my jacket off for anybody. He goes, well, then you have to leave. I said, my friends leave, I'll leave. So I said, hey, sit down for a minute. There was a booth there. So we sat down. I said, first of all, yeah, I'm a Hell's Angel, but I don't drink, I don't smoke, I never took a drug in my life. Never even tried it. He goes, oh, I don't know. That's so we talked about 15, 20 minutes. He goes, you know what? You're welcome here anytime you want.
Wow.
I'd love to have you. I said, great. That was my new home. I went there every night.
Wow. That's
I rode
great.
up on my motorcycle, went there every night, and met everybody. I met Joe Pesci there after he just did Raging Bull.
Wow.
Liza Minnelli. I met everybody there. So at another time, I was at a car show at the New York Coliseum, and Robert Conrad was there, and they asked if we could, I could bring him in the back because there were a lot of people coming around. He was a big star at the time. He was doing Black Sheep Squadron. He was doing other things, Wild Wild West. So I escorted him in the back, and he had a bodyguard with him. So I asked the people, could you move? So they saw me, and they saw, I was Angel and everything. They moved. And we got in the back, and I said to the guy, I says, you make money out of this? He goes, yeah, it's a very lucrative thing. I said, well, how'd you get started? He goes, look, what you do is you have cards made, start giving them to people, and before you know it, somebody will call you. Just think of a catchy name. So I went home, I said, my name's Charles Chuck Charlie. I'm a Hell's Angel. So I called it Charlie's Angels Bodyguard Service. And I had cards made with a kickboxer. It's a flying kickboxer with wings. And I had it on my wrist, but I had it made. I started giving cards out. So I went back to Cafe Central. I started handing cards out to Liza Minnelli, this one,
That's
that
what
one.
I was wondering is how you
Yeah.
got started with
Yeah.
Liza Minnelli.
Liza called me the next day.
Wow.
And she goes, my sister, Lorna Luft, her half-sister, Lorna Luft, was getting death threats. And she was in a play called Snoopy. And I said, okay. I says, I'll go meet her. I says, if, how much? I said, well, the first night it's, gratis. If she likes me, I like her, we'll get along. And so I did. And we got along, and I started working for her on the rink. And Liza was paying me.
Right.
And then after the rink, Liza got a job on Snoopy. Liza did a show called The Rink with Cheetah Rivera. She hired me to be a bodyguard for the show.
Wow.
And once Liza was there, everybody came to her dressing room. Everybody. De Niro, Pacino, I mean, everybody was there. Elizabeth Taylor, Liberace, Halstead, everybody. So I'm standing at the door, and she goes, well, one requirement is you have to wear a suit.
Oh.
So now I'm in a suit like this, and I'm at the backstage, and I'm at her door. So people used to come in. Can I see Liza? Yeah, I went in there. So one day I walked in there. I says, Liza, Elizabeth Taylor is outside. She wants to know if she could see you. She goes, you're making Elizabeth Taylor wait outside? I says, yes. She goes, I love you. And I went out there, Miss Taylor, you can come in now. And so
That's
that's how I
great.
used to.
That's so
I don't care
cool.
who they were. You had to
Yeah.
wait. Let me ask Liza. If she's dressed, she's ready to take visitors. I'll find out. And I was the only guy there, and I was there for we were there for like 5 months probably doing the show.
All you needed was
And-
to get your foot in the door. Right?
Yeah, and everybody saw me with Liza, and everybody started calling me. A year or 2 years later, I was known as a bodyguard to the stars and bodyguard everybody could think of. From Elizabeth Taylor to Michael Jackson to Sly to Pamela Anderson.
What's your
Angelina
craziest
Jolie.
bodyguard story?
My craziest? Well, I
Or
got
like
one with
one that
Liza.
sticks out.
I got one with Liza because we used to walk out the backstage, and there would be people there waiting to see her. I mean, hundreds of people.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she used to the booklets, the flyers they had, the programs for the
Yeah,
show.
yeah.
She used to sign them. And one day, straight ahead, there was a fire escape. From the rink downstairs. If there was a fire, and a guy was standing there. So everybody else was on the grounds. When I opened the door, I seen the guy. He went in his jacket pocket. And I'm thinking he's got a gun there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I run up there and I grab his arm and I grab him by the throat. And I'm squeezing his throat, his Adam's apple.
Yeah.
And I'm ready to think I'm pulling out a gun.
Right.
He
Playbill.
pulled out a camera.
Oh, camera.
And I let him go and I says,
Next show's on
I
me.
said, oh boy.
Yeah.
I says, here, the guy was turning purple and red and everything. And
Oh
So I
yeah.
said, you know what? I says, because I'm thinking not only I get sued, but my
Liza.
client.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They could do that. I said, look, I apologize. Why are you standing here when everybody's else here? You go in your jacket. It's just natural. Boom. I said, I'll tell you what. I'll give you 2 front row tickets tomorrow night. And that cooled it.
Fixed.
Good for you. Yeah.
cool,
Today,
that-
I don't know if you'd get away with it
Yeah.
because everyone would be
Well-
recording.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's right there. When you said that, that's the worst thing they ever invented.
Yeah.
Those phones and computers. I'm sorry. And computers. Because even if it's nobody's business, they start recording everything. And
Everything.
it's crazy.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's
So
crazy.
we were, Paul and I were at the train station when Trump was first elected. And we were there, my mom was the head of Small Business Administration.
Yes.
So, and it was incredible, right? So the opportunity to be there for the inauguration. And
Yes.
we went to the train station because we were, just waiting, and everything was so crazy and busy. And we're certainly not a part of the cabinet, so we're just waiting.
Yeah, of course.
And there were people at a nearby table just trying to incite us because they recognized, of course, my husband, and they were against my mom and just anything to do with the administration. So they were really trying to incite him to get mad, and everybody had their cameras out. And luckily nothing happened, but I could feel how
sure,
the
tension,
pressure
of course,
of it,
of course.
it was
Of course. It's amazing the hate they have today.
hate.
It's amazing
It was
what's going on
insane.
today. Yeah.
And the thing is, like, I don't really talk politics,
Yeah,
much,
yeah.
and
I try not to. Some of my friends
yeah,
don't.
and I
don't,
respect everybody's opinion,
Yeah.
like I really do. And we have guests, some who are very anti, but it's never, it's not a political show, right? So we don't really talk about that. But everyone has their own opinions and perspectives
Yeah.
on, what they want for this country. And it's so
Absolutely.
tough because there's
Yeah.
just a lack of communication and, like you said, the guy at the cafe.
Yeah, I was going to say
Right?
that.
He
You
had
sit
preconceived
down.
notions about
yes,
you.
yes, yeah.
And 10 to 15 minute conversation, you guys got to know each other a little bit. You didn't want to kill him anymore. And he,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
like, and then you guys became, like, you were invited
Yeah,
every
today
night,
is
right?
just that well, you got to remember, I'm friends with the president for over 40 years.
Yeah. Same with my parents.
Yes.
Because WrestleMania was, you know, at Trump Tower in Jersey in Atlantic
Yes.
City for back to back. I think it was WrestleMania 4 and WrestleMania 5, if I remember correctly. And that was where their relationship first started.
Yes. In fact, President Trump, well, you know, Donald Trump at the time,
Right?
when he had, you know, Trump Towers in Atlantic City.
Yeah.
He's the one
that's
who
where it was. Yeah.
brought
Yeah.
the UFC there.
Yeah.
Because
Oh, yeah.
everybody,
That's right.
they would,
Couldn't
you know,
get
banned.
sanctioned. Yeah.
Especially in New York.
Yeah.
So basically, he gave them the first opportunity to show the world about the UFC,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know.
And so so I know your father was a professional boxer.
Yes.
How did you so you started boxing at a young age, right?
Yes.
And
I used to get beat up every day in the Bronx. I was from the South Bronx. And there was a guy named Butch. I always compared him to, even in my documentary, it says the kid from the Little Rascals.
Yeah.
That guy Butch. So for some reason, I mean, we were only 5 years old, but he was a heavier kid. And he had that mentality back then.
right.
I wish I saw Butch, you know, later on in my lifetime.
Yeah.
but, you know, I used to get beat up all the time. Every time he saw me, for some reason, beat me up. I went crying home to my father one day. And he goes, "Don't ever come crying home to me. You hear me?" So he pulls out this chest with all his boxing equipment in it. He had his, you know, his robe, his gloves, his headgear, everything. And he put the gloves on me. You know, the gloves went, you know,
Yeah,
were up to my
sure.
elbow. And he got on his knees and he goes, "I'm going to teach you how to defend yourself." And we started to throw a jab, throw this, and that's how I started, you know, boxing for the first time. And then I said, you know, I've learned how to throw a jab and you know, right hand and a hook. That's the three basic things. And I said, I can't wait to use this on Butch again. You know, when he comes up to me, that's it. And the next day, very next day, when after he talked to me, and I went to use it, and he beat me up again.
That's what I was gonna
Oh,
ask.
man.
It didn't work. So that's
So
how I-
when
you know,
did it?
so
Was there ever a moment where you taught Butch a lesson?
No.
No?
No.
He's
no.
lucky.
We were kids. In fact, I tell you what, I remember going to first grade, and you know, when your first time you're in school, and they had to drag him in. He was crying.
Oh.
You know, with his parents and everything.
Right.
And I started laughing. I was like, oh, good for him. You know? But I didn't let him know I was laughing. So even when I get on Sundays, my parents used to dress us up. I mean, I had suits. I had like a, you know, gangster hat on. We
Yeah.
always dressed nice.
Yeah.
All of us today. I watch kids. They go to school with
In their
pajamas
pajamas.
on,
Yeah, it's crazy.
with sandals. I
My
can't
kids want to
believe
wear
it.
their slippers, one in particular, and
Yeah.
you can't wear your house shoes out.
I stop at a light by a school and I see them. I can't believe this. We used to outdress each other. Who
Yeah.
had the nicest clothes? Girls had, you know, dresses on. You know, in junior high school, it was
Yeah.
amazing. But I see these kids today. But I remember him crying, and I just, you know, was laughing inside.
But
And
so
then-
then, how did you how did you get exposed to MMA? Because you have a black belt in a number of different disciplines.
I trained in
right?
8 different styles. 8 different styles. Basically, when I saw Bruce Lee in the Green Hornet, I said, I want to be like Bruce. So I enrolled, I was 18. I enrolled into Aaron Banks Karate Academy in New York City. And I started training Kung Fu, White Crane Tiger Claw Kung Fu with Master Chin. So after because Bruce Lee was, you know, Kung
Yeah.
Fu and Jeet Kune Do and everything, and who didn't want to be like Bruce? I mean,
Right.
he opened up the doors for so many people. In fact, when I first met, you know, Bernard Kerrick, he did the same thing. After Bruce, he started training in martial arts, and we had
Wow.
the same story. So a lot of people, you know, he
That's where
introduced
they
the
got-
martial arts
yeah.
to everybody. And then after that, I started training with Tommy May in Ishiru Karate, and then went on to with Shion Chris Colombo, in Chiquita Jiu-Jitsu, Kumite-Ryu Jiu-Jitsu, VNS Jiu-Jitsu, and all those styles. So,
And clearly you have a knack for it, right?
Yeah.
Like you excelled so rapidly, right? Through all of that.
I went and I went to my first karate tournament. In fact, I started I was with Chiquita Jiu-Jitsu with Master Butte. I was there 1 week. He goes, there's a tournament coming up. Who wants to fight? I raised my hand. He goes, you just started. You can't fight. I said, well, I've had a lot of boxing, and I'd like to go. So I went to the tournament. I beat every white and yellow belt there. And
Wow.
Bill Sufoot Wallace and John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd were in my corner.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So that was pretty wild.
Top
Yeah.
story.
And I still have my picture with them, and I have my trophy, my first place trophy with them from.
And how did you first meet them?
Bill was. I got a story with that too. John Belushi was friends with Sandy Alexander, who was in a stuntman in the movie business. He did some movies, and he used to come to the clubhouse, John. And then when they opened up the blues bars, we used to go there.
Oh, okay.
And hang out with them and everything. So I became friends with John and Dan. The Blues Brothers was playing at the Academy of Music on 14th Street.
Okay.
And we had our clubhouse on 3rd Street between 1st and 2nd Avenue. So I met, like I said, I met John and Danny from Sandy Alexander. And I found out they just got this new bodyguard. And I says, man, Dan knows, I have got my bodyguard business. Why am I, I says, I'm going to go there and I'm going to intimidate the shit out of this guy, where he just walks away. So I see them coming out backstage gate after the show, and I see Dan come out, and I see John. I say, John, and all of a sudden I see Bill Wallace behind him, and I said, how you doing, Mr. Wallace? My name's Chuck Zito. Because he was at the time the middleweight champion of the world and everything, kickboxing. He never lost a fight. 23 times, a kickboxing champion of the world.
That's
And I
pretty
was
funny.
like, wow.
That's pretty funny.
And I was a big, fan of his.
yeah.
And I was ready to go, intimidate this guy. And so it was funny. I said, how you doing, Mr. Wallace? My name's Chuck Zito. And we became friends from there.
That's
and
great.
we're friends till this
To
day.
this day.
Yes.
That's so cool.
40, 50 years later, we're still friends. So it was crazy.
What do you think motivates a fighter? Like, how do you... I think it's a particular kind of person
Yeah.
who has
Well,
that mentality.
I had my first ring fight. I was 12 years old. And I had it at the Southside Boys Club in New Rochelle. So that was my first, part or look with an audience. I mean,
Right.
I was very nervous. You
Sure.
you get. I don't care what they say. Even today's day, you're still nervous before you go in for a fight.
Yeah.
You get the jitteries. You get the, wow, this is going to happen, and everything else. And like my first night at Golden Gloves, it was crazy. But I walked out there when I was 12 years old, and it's at
Because
Southside
12
Boys
is
Club.
pretty young, right?
And my father,
Yeah.
to fight, to get in the ring,
Yeah, to get
and
hit
my
in the
father
head.
was in my corner, and he told me, instructed me, well, look, just throw the punch up there, come down, hit him with solar flex, and everything else. So I tried that, didn't work. So
Maybe it works
that
for
was
you,
my
Dad.
first night. My first night as a 12-year-old boy in a ring. Then I when I was 19, I went into the Golden Gloves in New York City. That was the most prestigious tournament there was. Everybody went in the Golden Gloves before they became a champ.
Yeah.
Everybody. Which is sad today. They don't even have it anymore.
Oh,
the Daily
really?
News Golden Gloves, it was called. They put it on for years, and it hasn't been, I don't even know how long it's been, 10, 15 years since they had a Golden Gloves match.
Wow.
But that was the biggest tournament
Yeah, I've
where you
always
have
heard of the
hundreds
Golden Gloves.
of,
Yeah.
Yeah.
kids from all the metropolitan area going in the Golden Gloves. So I walk in there, and my first night, it was the first night of the Golden Gloves, and I had the first fight. Talking about pressure.
Right?
I said, wow.
And yeah.
So you're in a room, probably the size of this, dressing room, and you have all the guys in there who you're fighting.
Oh,
Everybody's-
really?
They're all in
Everybody's
one
in
locker
the
room?
same room.
Wow.
Yeah, it's one locker room. It's not even you. People on the
terrifying.
floor, people sitting on milk boxes, this. And they come up, and it was like one guy I saw in a corner, and the guy was just a jacked up kid. And I said, wow, look at that. I told my father, I hate to see the guy fighting this guy. Right? So he comes in, Zito and Pratt. I start getting up. All of a sudden, I saw that guy from the milk box start getting up. I said, you're Pratt? Yeah. I said, I'm going to get killed. I'm going to get killed. And my father says, don't worry about it. Don't worry about his size. Because he was like just a strong little kid, like a young Mike Tyson. He was
Right?
just jacked. He was just, I said, we get in the ring. He's in there, and I'll watch it across from the ring like this. My father hits me on his shoulder. Move. I went. And I went out there. He hit me with an overhand right, his first shot, and I just said, I stood back. I said, what the fuck am I doing here?
Right?
And then I just started moving around. He was, a rough, like Mike, just charging at you all the time. So I started throwing a jab out. I started throwing a jab. He goes underneath. I throw a jab. He goes underneath. The third time I throw the jab, I come up with an uppercut. Boom, he goes down.
Really?
Yeah. Then I got all my confidence back. I said, get up, get
come
up, So the second round, I knocked him out.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
a great
But
story.
it was the first night of the Golden Gloves. I had the first fight.
That's
And
crazy.
like I said, talk about pressure. I said,
Yeah.
oh, my God. And then when that guy got off the chair, the milk box, I said, oh, my God, he's going to kill me.
But so here's a perfect example. Not everybody, aside from the fact of the skill of boxing, but to get out there and to put yourself in that position,
Yeah.
that's a special kind of person.
And not only that, I had half my friends from New Rochelle there. They're all
Yeah.
cheering me on. I said, no way I'm going to lose tonight.
Yeah.
I was from Westchester. They called me the Westchester Walloper.
That's a great name. The Wallet.
And in the news, the first night of the Gloves, now I told you Daily News sponsored this.
Right.
So they used to have the center section where it was all pictures and the whole back. I was the centerfold and the back.
That's awesome.
Zito knocks Pratt out. The guy's name was Pratt. Knocks the Pratt out in the second round. And I thought I was like...
Do you still have it?
I have those clips. I had them
Yeah,
made and
that's
put
great.
them up.
That's
yeah.
great.
Yeah. And I was a refrigeration mechanic, too, at the time. So I used to work in all the finest supermarkets, repairing the refrigeration. So I walk in, and everybody had the newspaper. And I
Yeah.
thought I was,
Yeah, you thought you were
Rocky
king.
Marciano. They had the papers. They looked at it. Everybody. It was great.
like, yeah.
Because everybody was, got the news.
That's so
News,
great.
Daily News.
yeah.
And it was sponsored by the Daily News Golden Gloves.
Yeah. So maybe it's a way to you make it. You are somebody, right? Like that. It must feel really good.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially, like I said, when I walked into the supermarkets, everybody had the paper.
Yeah.
Yeah, they treated me
And
like,
you're so young.
forget it.
But at this time, though, you're also married, right?
Yes.
And was your daughter born at that time?
Yes, my wife actually was married before,
Okay.
and I raised her daughter since she was a year old.
Oh, okay.
it's
So
like
this is
my
not
own,
your
yeah.
not your
No,
biological
no,
daughter? Okay.
No,
Did you ever have any biological
No.
children?
no.
But
No.
since she was one, that's young.
Oh,
That's
well,
her
It's
whole
she's
life.
amazing.
daughter,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
amazing. Because I was with my wife for 30 years, and,
Yeah.
That's another story.
A story you don't like to tell.
That's another story.
It's not as exciting.
So
My documentary's coming out soon.
Yes,
Finally.
yes.
Finally. And it's going to be on Amazon Prime.
Awesome.
So in the next couple of weeks, it should be on Amazon Prime.
oh, perfect. Well, we'll time it.
And
you know.
the great thing about it, I have the most powerful man in the world opens and closes my documentary, President Trump.
That's amazing.
He opens and closes my documentary.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Are you ready to hold WWE history in the palm of your hand? Topps is bringing you closer to the action than ever before with WWE Topps Now, highlighting the biggest matches and milestones from WWE shows and PLEs throughout the year. Topps Now is enhancing the fan experience by connecting collectors to the superstars and spectacles that ignite their passion. Featuring stunning event-exclusive photography, each card is made for the moment. And for some lucky collectors, that moment could become the pull of a lifetime. Along with serial numbered parallels, some Topps Now releases offer a chance at rare short prints, superstar autographs, and even pieces of the mat, gear, or other items used during the featured match. So which moments will you collect? With each card only available for a limited time, you won't want to wait to begin your Tops Now journey. Be sure to subscribe to the WWE Tops Now mailing list on Tops.com and follow Tops on all social media platforms so you never miss a single moment.
I actually had Mickey Rourke's bike for 33 years, the one from Harley Davidson Marlboro Man. That was
Yeah.
the first electric start one.
Wow.
And I had that for 33 years. But Mickey never gave me the title to it. I just had it at my house in New York, and I rode it all over the place. Well, what happened was I went to California to his house, and he had a bunch of bikes. He must have like, 12 bikes. And the Marlboro bike is all metal. So it started rusting. I said, Mick, let me take this back, and I'll,
Yeah.
fix it up. And, I took another bike that was in, he had another bike that was in, what was the other name of the movie with Carrie Otis? Anyway, I took both of them back.
Yeah.
So I fixed one up, and he always liked the purple. So I painted the bike purple and black and everything, and sent that back to him. But I kept the Marlboro bike for all those years. And I used to take it to all the runs, because every year we have a USA run at Hells Angels, and it'd be all over the country. So I
Yeah.
always rode that bike. And I got there one day, and it had a little seat, must have been a half-inch thick. It was
So
was all metal.
rough for a like
it was very,
countrywide,
yeah.
nationwide
So
ride.
I got to a run, and I was like, "You didn't write this here." I said, "Of course I wrote it here. What, I pushed it?" It was a hard bike to ride. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a very difficult bike. Not for me. I was used to it, but I rode that bike all
Everywhere.
over the country,
Yeah.
all over the country.
So cool.
And then finally he got it back. So he told me, I need the bike back after 33 years. And
Once you remembered you had it.
want to do a motorcycle movie. I said, Mick, it was always yours.
Yeah.
You never gave me the title for it. So I said, look, I got a 64 Corvette. You want to trade for it? No, I want my bike back. I said, all right. So I get the bike. I get a trailer. I pay somebody to take it all out to California. The day he gets the bike, he calls me. He goes, I'll trade you for the Corvette. I said, Mick, I would have sent you a Corvette
just
and not the
did,
bike. I said, well, look, hold the bike. I can't come out there for a couple of months, and I'll take the paperwork and we'll make the trade. I went back 4 months later. He left the bike outside in the rain and rusted to shit. I said, you kidding me? I said, why did you, the wheels were, chrome was rusted, the tank was rusted. I had no chance to put in I said, if you have a garage right there, why don't you put it in the garage? She never did. I said, look, you still interested in the Corvette? Yes. Done deal, Neil. That's what he said. I said, okay. So now I said, look, I'll take the bike. A friend of mine, Shane, followed me. I went down to Orange County to Rock and Roll Paint. My friend Randy owned the business, and he painted a few things for me. And I took it down there. I took it all apart. I sent, we did the tank over, because all it was all like 30 grit paper swirls, and it had, a Harley Davidson on it with cards and a skull, and we did that same paint job, and we
Right.
just cleared it and made a new one. All the chrome I sent out, and then about a month later, Mickey calls me, goes, look, I don't want the car no more. I want my bike back. And he never got the car yet. I said, Mick, I told you it's all apart. It's in Randy's shop. Well, where is it? I said, it's down in Orange County, Rock and Roll Paint. He goes the next day. And he goes up and walks into the place. He goes, look, I'm Mickey Rourke, and there's a motorcycle here. He goes, well, you don't look like Mickey Rourke, because, all the plastic surgery he had. And he just looked a mess. So, and I always tell people that, between us, Mickey can't read.
Oh.
He was supposed to go to Beverly Hills, Dr. Schumacher, the plastic surgeon. Instead, he went next door to the shoemaker.
You can only say this because you're friends, right?
We used to be.
Oh, not anymore?
No.
Because of this story?
No.
Or something else?
No, because I told them, I said, Mick, the bike's all... So I took the bike back to New York after it was done. I said, look, it cost me $10,000 to fix the bike. Yeah. Give me the 10 grand, it's yours. No, I'll give you 4,000. I said, no, Mick, the price is 10, and that's it. couple months later, now I live in a place where I got divorced. I built this house for me and my wife, beautiful house, and we got divorced. And I didn't realize what a good housekeeper my wife was. We got divorced. She kept the house. So I had to move. She's still in the house. She's still there. I built it for us and did all the brick and stone, me and my friends, and it was something. So I had to move up west in it was an apartment. I had the garage there already, so it was a small apartment. And next door they were selling, some drugs there. And one day I come out, I see SWAT there. I said, wow, they finally got these guys. It's amazing. Finally, after all these years. I walk to my gate, a dozen cops surround me. They says, Mr. Zito, we're here to search and seize Mickey Rourke's motorcycle.
No way.
I said to myself, shit, fucking bike's in the garage. So he goes, we're glad you're here because we were ready to cut your gates down and your garage and everything and take the bike. I said, let me tell you something. I don't care how many guys you have here. If I came home and I saw you messing with my stuff,
Yeah.
I said there'd be a big problem. He goes, Mr. Zito, we know who you are. We know what you're capable of doing. That's why there's a dozen of us and not two of us. And I said, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I had to open my garage and take the bike out, and they had a flatbed there. I had to put it on a flatbed and
And that's it.
brought it back to him.
That's
Never got
terrible.
a penny for it. Yeah. So we never talked since.
Well, I guess I understand
sense.
that. Yeah.
So I don't talk to him.
That's too bad because you guys were tight,
And then
right?
we were tight for years. I mean, I was his bodyguard for years. I was stunt double in some movies he did. And then I found out he sold a bike.
No.
Yeah. So you know what? He should have just said, hey, here's the bike back. And I had it for 33 years. And that was it. I don't talk to him.
And what does he say about the whole scenario?
He don't say nothing. I never saw him.
Yeah.
He got hit once from me already. So, back in scores, back in the days, after the Jean-Claude thing. And then he got it too. So,
Because Jean-Claude said you have no heart? Is that what he said?
yeah. I was at scores one night. And you got to realize I was his bodyguard in 1992.
Jean-Claude's.
Jean-Claude's.
Okay.
We used to go and the Hawaiian Tropic contest they always had judges there, and I was even a judge myself, and also President Trump was a judge when he was Donald Trump, and they used to have all the celebrities there, everybody there, and Jean-Claude got invited, I got invited, and I was his bodyguard, and we were there for the for the Hawaiian Tropic contest, and then I wound up being his bodyguard. He went to Vegas for a martial arts extravaganza there. I went with him. We were sparring each other up on a roof there, and then it was the Aladdin Hotel. It was, and then they changed it, and then we had a falling out, and then he went his way and I went mine.
And the scores.
And 6 years later,
That's
he came
when you
in.
saw each other.
He came with Mickey Rourke and like eight guys, and when me and Mickey were tight then, and I was having dinner there already, and Frankie comes up to me, one of the bouncers, he goes, Mickey says come up and sit with them. I said, all right, the president, the lounge up there. I said, okay. So I went up there, and after I had my dinner, I went up there, saw Mickey, holding everything in, and Jean-Claude was there. I said, hey, Jean-Claude, how you doing? And he just had, an attitude, and he goes, hey, Chuck Zito. And I said, I know my last name. Why are you saying that? So we didn't say anything. So
Was he messed up a little?
No, because he was doing a movie and he was drinking water. So
Oh. He just wanted to pick a fight.
yeah, I guess
I think he
Wrong guy.
regretted that decision.
it wasn't a good time either.
Yeah, that's too
So.
bad.
But look, we had a fight that night, and then
Was he a good fighter?
yeah, he was a great fighter.
Yeah.
Great fight. I broke my hand on his head. That's the scar from his head.
How
I
long was
broke my
that
hand.
fight as compared to the 10-minute fight with the other guy?
That was a few minutes.
Oh, okay.
And then, he was down, and some bouncers came and grabbed me, and I wanted to break my hand. They threw him out. And Mickey says, I said, because now I'm going home. That's when we had, answering machines and
Yeah.
and pages at the time.
Right? Oh, yeah.
So I had to go to hospital. I couldn't. And the crazy thing, this happened on Thursday night. Friday comes. Howard Stern gets on. Did you hear about that guy who bitch slapped Jean-Claude Van Damme last night? Man, he said, I was like, you don't mess with those guys. Baba Booey, get him on the show. So Mickey told me he was going to press charges against me. So I denied my whole thing. I wasn't even at Scores. Time became an answering machine, Inside Edition, and this one that called me, and everybody called, and I denied it. I said I wasn't even there, so I don't know what you're talking about. And the crazy part about it, Monday I start Oz, my first day on Oz.
Oh, so this is after prison. This is like right after you got out.
Yeah.
So you're in a precarious position anyway.
I start Oz the first day. In the paper, it's got a big picture of Jean-Claude doing a bicep pose as Jean-Claude Van Slammed. Second page, it says Chuck Zito, star of Oz. I says, I didn't work one day, I'm going to get fired.
Oh, no.
Right? So I couldn't get a cast on my hand. My hand was twice the size because I would have lost the job.
Oh.
So I didn't want to get a cast. Because they saw that, they said, sorry, you can't use it. So I just had the hand, and I go in. They tried to call me for the Howard Stern show. I said, no, I'm not doing it. I says, I don't even know what you're talking about. I wasn't even there. So Monday came. I go to Oz for my first day, and I walk in, and Tom Fontana, who's the director and writer and the producer in Oz, everything, he says, I read the paper. I said, fuck, this guy's going to fire me, He goes, couldn't you add his show couldn't you hit him when the show aired? Because he got so much
more
publicity.
publicity. Yeah, that's
got so
right.
much publicity.
That's right.
So
Makes you more authentic.
I wound up doing a Howard the next day.
Yeah.
And I said to him what happened. He says, I can't believe it. You're a big guy who, who's going to mess with you and blah, blah, blah. And I said, let me tell you something, Howard. If I knew I was going to get this much publicity, I would have knocked him out 3 years ago. So,
Well, and Howard, he was a big Scores guy at the time.
He was at
if I
Scores
remember
all the time,
correctly.
too,
Yeah.
and everybody. And I brought a lot of celebrities there. I mean, I brought Mickey there. I brought Sean there. I brought everybody. Charlie Sheen, everybody to Scores. Whenever they were in New York, I brought them there. We had dinner. They used to have a good, they had a good restaurant there.
Yeah.
They had great
that's what I
steaks
heard.
and everything.
Yeah.
Wow,
the food was amazing.
the food was good. The food was good. I was there all the time. And I had to be there, probably every other night.
I was there once.
And that's why. Oh, you were there.
Shot a music video with DX.
Casual.
Yeah. That's where we shot it in the
As
back.
one does.
So that was putting a toll on my my marriage too, because I was out a lot, and you know what?
Sure.
In my documentary, I say, I could have been a better husband and father. Father's Day, I was out with the club in Laconia. I was at Scores, and leaving her home. So it was I say in my documentary that
Well, we all learn.
I take a lot of blame.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we all learn.
So after 30 years, I mean, it was
Yeah.
we didn't leave on good terms, but lately we've been talking. I mean, get so old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you both
all I
live.
know is, like I says, this happened in '99. I always say, we missed so many 27 years wasted of our best lives because now we're both old.
Hmm.
You
You don't think you lived your best life?
No, I'm saying with her.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
I feel
I
like
don't know if you could have done both at the same time.
But we
the
tried to
way
go
you
back.
mean.
We tried to go back a couple of times. And if we ever had an argument, the affair came up and it was no good.
Yeah.
So
that's tough.
that's life. Things happen. You go on. You move on.
And you learn,
But
right?
I never remarried. Never, saw different girls, of course, but never remarried. I did it once. Meanwhile, I have friends that were married 5-6 times. You guys are crazy.
Yeah.
That's really crazy.
Do you hear the ad on TV all the time? What's the guy like? He's on wife, but he's only on wife number 2. Have you heard that?
Yeah.
Like
I
it's
feel like
like
that's an SNL
Big John
skit.
or something.
Some
and
of
it's
my
like-
friends married 6 times.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to say their names,
why
but
not
they're
just,
just they're well known too.
just
so
date
I just
at
wow.
that point? Like,
Yeah. Well,
Right.
who knows?
You know,
right?
if the
Everybody
first one
lives their
don't work,
own
the
life.
second one don't work. Why waste your time? I mean, the first one didn't work with me. I wasn't going to get married again. You know?
Well, it clearly
So-
hurt you really bad.
Yeah, yeah. And she was basically my childhood sweetheart. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
You know, we were 17 when we started going together. I mean, you know,
But can I ask a question?
yes.
But it's okay for, and I know that at this time, society was a bit different and maybe still is.
Society
But,
was so different back then.
so it's okay for the male in the relationship to fool around, but not the female in the relationship. It's just a time thing, or
You know, nobody ever caught me with anything, and nobody ever said nothing. So, but you know, it's
just
one
different.
thing. It's one thing if I hate to say it, you know, for a guy, it's maybe a one night stand with something, you know,
Right.
when
it's
somebody
more
else
that because
It's
it was
the
a
affair.
because
relationship.
their relationship, and when I was with her,
Yeah.
Yeah.
not married because we weren't married
Right.
because we
But
got
common law
divorced, right?
marriage,
Yeah.
if that exists.
But you know, when
where-
we're living together and you know doing everything together and find out
yeah.
Yeah. It was another
hurt.
relationship. That's
it
Yeah.
hurt. Yeah, it hurt. So, and the crazy thing about it, I thought something was going on, so I tapped my phones. You know, and I had to go out with Pamela Anderson. I took her to the Tyson fight. Then I was supposed to do an episode of VIP. So, of course, I would call the phone and listen to any messages. And all of a sudden, a message, she called, "Hi, it's me." And this guy gets on, says his name, August so-and-so, and with his number. Says, "Who the fuck is this guy?"
Mm.
Right? So now I say, now I hear this. And then the next message was my daughter. She called. And she goes, my daughter, she goes, I'm going skiing with August
Oh, your daughter
this weekend.
knew?
Yeah. And she never said August who. She knew. They found out she had dinner with him.
Mm.
So they were both, you know, deceived me, both of them. So my daughter hasn't talked to me in 30 years. I have two grandsons. They don't even know who I am. And they're, you know, in college and out of college. And, yeah, because of it. So, you know, went through some, because hurt with the thing that happened, you know.
What would you say is you've lived so much life? What's the biggest lesson and this seems like the hardest thing you went through?
Yeah, I took jail was nothing. 6 years in prison. I mean, that was the hardest thing I went through.
Yeah.
That still bothers me to this day. Because every time, even today, even till this day, when I put my head on the pillow, I think about it.
Really?
Till this day.
Like PTSD.
And I don't even sleep. If I get 3 hours sleep a night, it's a lot.
Really?
Yeah. I'm up all night.
Have you always been like that or since prison?
Since no prison, I was sleeping. Even with my wife, I was sleeping. But after all the stuff, it was harder to take. So I get 3-4 hours sleep a night. I'm lucky. I hate when guys tell me, "Oh, I get 8-10 hours sleep without waking up." I say, "You're kidding me." No, 10 hours sleep without waking up. Last time I got 10 hours sleep, I was in a bassinet. You know? Are you crazy? I get mad when people tell me they get out without waking up.
Do you still train?
Yeah, I still train.
Yeah.
Not as much as I used to because I'm always busy now. Like I said, my documentary, I've been working on that for a long time. The thing that was, I had music in there by Joe and Jet and some other people. We had to take some music out because I thought you could just use, you know,
Whatever,
people's
yeah,
music. And
yeah.
of course they come
There's
after
a lot
you.
of rights involved.
So now, yeah. I had to buy rights to, Joan gave me her stuff. Now I have Kid Rock in it.
That's
American
great.
Badass,
Yeah.
because President Trump walks out to that song all the time. I have that. I had to pay for that.
That's the Undertaker's entrance music for a period of time also. Yeah.
And I just put, when I talk about my family in the Bronx, growing up in the Bronx, when I was a kid, I remember, sitting on those steps with my mom, those stoop right there. and then it goes on my grandmother and aunt lived right next door, and then it goes into Louis Prima, Cello Luna. The song Cello Luna, and it goes through the whole thing with us in the backyard, the kids
That's
and
beautiful.
my family and everything else. So I had to buy that.
Yeah.
So that's what was taking so long. And finally, it's going to be on Amazon Prime, hoping by the end of this month.
Awesome.
And then everybody will be seeing it. So we're doing that.
Was it cathartic to do it all? Like, did you find that you healed in any way from telling your story, or not yet? Not until it's out.
Not until it's out, I think.
Yeah.
You know, because it says a lot. It goes
Yeah.
back to when I was born. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, I was on Wheeler Avenue when I was born. I showed the house that when I was born at. Then we moved. Our second house was on Barretto Street in Hunts Point. In fact, right across the street was the spot for home for youths there. My mother used to threaten me. You bad, I'll send you across the
Put
street.
you there.
Very convenient.
You know, so and then moved a lot. Moved to Brooklyn, moved to Sheepshead Bay. From there, went to Bensonhurst. You know, we moved a lot. You know, my dad was the superintendent of building and manager of buildings, so we had to move with him. And then once they got divorced, then we moved to New Rochelle, and where I'm still at. You know?
Yeah.
My sister still lives. My older sister lives there. My younger sister lives in Hauppauge, Long Island. And my mom's in Comac, so she's 3 miles from my mom, so she goes to see her all the time. So, but we were moving a lot back in the day, especially after they got divorced. We went up to New Rochelle, which to us, that was like country compared to Brooklyn.
Yeah.
You know, they
Well,
had
and
the beach
Brooklyn
clubs.
at that time too was very
And
different.
we used to call my aunt Pat Fellini and Eddie Fellini, and that was Jake LaMotta,
Yeah.
his wife's sister. So we were always close to Jake, and my father being a fighter, they were always close. His stablemate was Rocky Graziano at the time. My dad always fought at Stillman's gym, and fought at Yankee Stadium a lot. Madison Garden, my dad.
Wow.
Yeah, so he.
Did my grandfather promote any of those fights at the Garden? I wonder. Or my great grandfather, Jess McMahon, promoted boxing.
I don't know,
Yeah, I wonder.
but that was in the 40s. you know?
Yeah.
My dad fought. You have guys today fighting 30 years. They've had 50, 55 fights. My father fought for 12 years and had 228 fights.
That's crazy.
And you know what he used to get paid? $10.
$10 a fight.
$10 a fight.
Even as champ?
Well, he was never the champ. He was supposed to fight Marty Servo, who was a champion, the welterweight champion of the world. And my father got drafted in World War II.
Wow.
And back then, you never said you weren't going.
Right, right.
And they didn't care if you had fights or what, you were going.
How long
know,
did he serve?
2.5 years. You know, he was in overseas and everything. So,
And you
2.5
never
years,
got that
3
bug?
years. What's that?
You never got that bug to serve?
You know what? I was I was sitting in Isaac Young Junior High School, and I was sitting in social studies. My two friends came out the door. Come on, come on, come on! So I went out there. My friend Billy Riley and Jimmy Goodrich. He goes, "Come on, we're enlisting in the Marines." I said, "You crazy? I got a class next, in a little while." So they both enlisted, and they were like 17, 18,
Wow.
whatever it was. They just turned
Kids.
18, I think.
Yeah.
And I said, no, I'm not going. But I regretted not going because I
Really?
never served. And I wish I did, the Marines or the Army like my dad was in. But I never served because then it was, the draft lottery when I was.
Right.
In fact, my birthday was March 1st. March 2nd was number 1 to go. I was packing my bags. March 1st came up like 3-something, and I never,
Wow.
was for the vote.
What a crazy time.
Yeah.
And
So-
you don't know.
But it was during the, back then it was during the Vietnam War, but my two friends never went to Vietnam. Another friend of mine went.
Did
And-
everybody come back that you knew?
My friend Jimmy came, but years later he took his own life coming out. And I was sad. So it does things to people.
It does. It does. I served on the USO Metro Board in D.C., and mental health was one of the biggest.
Yes.
things that they try to help with, you know, and the toll it takes on the person, but also the family. You know, can't imagine it. I can't imagine it.
He used to
I've had a number of friends who
he used to hear a car backfire, he'd hit the ground.
Yeah.
You know, he was just like
So
that.
wound tight.
But that's why I do so many events for children with cancer. I do so many functions. I do the Army. I do whoever was in the service, I go, and I try to give back that way.
Yeah.
You know, so
it's important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do so many events. You know.
I want to ask you about because I fell in love with the show Sons of Anarchy.
Sons of Anarchy, yes.
Yeah, like I just love that show. But yes, there's sex and violence and it's all great. But to me, it was a show about brotherhood, and it was a show about family.
I was literally suing them for 2 years, that show, because I went in to FX. John Landgraf, who was a president, and Nick Rad, with my story called Wild Angels, about a motorcycle club.
Yeah, yeah.
But I missed my flight, and Michael Bregman went in with my story and someone else and gave it to them. Look, this is what we want to do, and they said, "Well, let's think about it." 2 weeks later, they called. I never made the meeting because I was on I missed my flight. So they went in for me. And 2 weeks later, they called, says, "We don't want to do a motorcycle series. We we pass." I said, "Okay, it's what it is."
Sure.
So I said, "All right." So a year later, we went, and with different representation, we called them, said, "Look, we'd like to see you again." They said, "We can't take the meeting because we're working on a motorcycle series." I said, "Wait a minute.
Yeah.
A year ago, you said you didn't want to do one. Now,
you already have one in the works.
Now you want to do it." Now, I believe that. Now, Kurt Sutter was working on the Shield with FX before Sons of Anarchy. And I believe he saw those guys, what they're doing, let me write it and everything else. And I said, "Wait a minute. There's something fishy about it here." So we started watching this thing, and now they come from the town of Charming. My name was Charming Chuck in the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club. One of the main guys' name is Chuck. A guy's tattoo was removed. They used a torch in there. Took everything from my book. So I said, "Okay, I'm going to sue these guys," So Kurt Sutter gets on. He goes, "I don't care about that half-ass actor, Chuck Zito. If he wants, my partner's a bigger outlaw than him, Rupert Murdoch." I was all right. Now I'm going to break this guy's jaw. Or this and that, when I go out there, because now of course, my lawyer says don't start anything. So we had one of those. We had a. Where you sit in
like the deposition.
Deposition. He came in. 3 of them came in. Kurt Sutter was last. John Landgraf, Nick Rad, with their lawyers, and me and my lawyer. So we're sitting across from each other, the lawyer and the person, me and their lawyer. So I say, so they came in and says, "Oh, no, we didn't take it out." And we says, "Look, it's in my book. Everything else is in it." And so now I said, when Kurt Sutter comes in here, I don't want to break for lunch, nothing. And I had a leather jacket on with a Guinea T-shirt underneath it, right?
Looking every bit the part.
Yeah.
So,
and what happened?
And he comes in. Now I'm sitting across. I'm just looking at him. He's not looking nowhere near me. He's looking at my lawyer. So I take my jacket off. It got hot, and then his eyes went like that. I looked, and that was it. So now we finished the meeting, everything. My lawyer calls me like 3 days later. He goes, "Look, Kurt Sutter wants to know if you want to meet him." I said, "For what?" He goes, "Well, he's probably going." So first No, first I said, what alley does he want to meet me in? Right? So he goes, no, he's probably going to apologize to you and offer you a part on the show. I said, no, I want to go back to court.
Okay.
I forgot. We were supposed to go back to court. He said, look, it could be, a year from now. Oh, they're willing to pay me all my money.
Right.
And because he was going to get paid, he's contingency and only get paid if I won the case.
Right.
So, I'll appeal it. I wanted to appeal
Okay.
it. He goes, look, we appeal it. We won't go see the judge for another year. They want to give me my money. I said, look, you sound like you want to see it. I said, all right, tell him, meet me. He said, in the restaurant, you pick the restaurant. I said, tell him Cafe Roma, Beverly Hills. Now, he gave Charlie Sheen a Sons of Anarchy jacket. Charlie gives it to me to wear to the meeting. Right? So, we meet at Cafe Roma. He comes up to me and he goes, look, I just want to apologize. I said, how do you like the jacket? Show him how much I love your show. He goes, where'd you get that? So, and Charlie had a little tag on it. It said Charlie. He goes, is that the one I gave Charlie? I said, right. He gave it to me. He goes, look, I know you're a serious person, and I just wanted to, apologize to him. I was a very serious person. My thing was to come here and knock you the fuck out tonight, So he goes, look, please sit down. I apologize for what I said, and I'd like to have you on the show, So we sat down. We started talking, and I got to admit, 10 minutes later, I liked the guy.
Yeah.
I knew he.
Right?
I felt like I knew him for 20 years.
Right.
We just got along so well after talking trash to each other.
Right.
And he apologized to me. And I said, look, as long as you pay my lawyer, he goes, he's getting paid. I said, okay, then I'll do the show. But what they didn't advise me is they just signed for 3 more years. My lawyer should have said, look, he's on it for 3 years. You can't kill him off. He's one of the main characters,
Right,
and that's
right.
it. So what happened was I came in as Frankie Diamonds from New York, Nomads, and I joined their crew. So what happened was I was on 8 episodes, and they killed me the 8th episode.
Yeah.
But I could have been on for 3 more years
Right.
because
if
those
you had
guys still
negotiated.
today,
Yeah.
all those guys, Charlie Hunnam and
Yeah.
Mark Boone and David LaBrava, all those guys, they still do signings all over the place
Sure,
as Sons of
sure.
Anarchy, and they make a lot of money.
Yeah.
But I wasn't on it long enough to get established as
One of the main
being one of those guys.
Yeah.
And but still this day, I'm still friends with all of them. I see them at shows, and
Yeah.
we're still friends. And
still
but-
Kurt as well.
I haven't seen Kurt since we were off the show, or anybody else. But who knows? They said they were bringing it back, but
So
my
was
character
it still
died.
a good? Do you think you could have won? Or like, do you feel good about your decision?
I think I would have won
yeah.
because it was going to
It
an
was
appellate
so-
court with 3 judges.
Yeah.
And what happened was I had a great judge who used to go in his chambers. He goes, I don't want this to go to court. I want you guys to settle. Got people from FX, me, my lawyer. I want you to settle. I don't want this to go. And the guy used to take off his robe. He had a black leather vest underneath it.
No way, really?
Yeah. I said, this guy's
couldn't
cool.
have got a better judge,
So,
right?
Yeah. I could have got a better judge. 2 years later, I go in. They change judges on me. And I walk in with my lawyer. They walked in with 5 different lawyers from 5 different firms.
Oh my
And
God.
the judge goes, I don't think they stole Mr. Zito's idea. It was self-created. I go with the studio, dismissed. And I was pissed.
I bet.
Yeah. So that's when I said I'm going to appeal it. I said, how much they pay you? My judge said, shut up. You'll both put us in jail. You're for contempt. So, but I had a good run with them. And like I said, me and Kurt became good friends. I'm still friends with all those guys.
That's great.
And Amelia Rivera is a dear friend of mine. We still see each other at places,
Yeah.
And we always text each other and everything else. So we're good friends.
It seems like one of the key lessons, right, from different stories that you've told is just sitting down and talking and listening,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I was pissed a lot of times, but then, of course, with Kurt, we sat down and I felt like I knew him for 10 years.
Yeah.
I said, here's a guy,
Right?
I'm ready to beat up, and we're best of friends.
Yeah, and the cafe guy was ready to throw you out, and you sat down.
Oh, yeah.
And then
yes,
you
we
back
sat
up.
down
It's
there.
like
Yeah.
that seems
You know
to
what?
be
The
a
people who
common
meet
theme.
me, a lot of people are intimidated, I guess, because for 25 years I was a Hell's Angel. I always wore my
and most
patch every
people
place
have
I went.
not even
you know?
been remotely in a fight. You know,
Yeah.
they don't understand physicality or aggression like that. They've never seen it. They've never felt it, and it's very intimidating to them.
Yeah. So many guys. When I had
And
to
you're
fight,
such a badass. I mean, also, well, you are.
No, but really.
Yeah.
Yeah, only when I have to be. Only when I have to be.
Well,
But sometimes
notorious,
I had to be.
I think.
Sometimes, a lot of times, I had to be.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so many fights on the street fights that we had, especially being down in the East Village.
I mean, you're legit.
Yeah,
As authentic as they come. And I think you were the first like really good bad guy, right? Like somebody who had been through a lot and been arrested and all of this stuff, but like it made you, because of who you are, I think also, and sort of your values.
Well, see, I have strict values that my parents instilled in me. One was to respect everybody, your elders especially, and everybody. And I always treated all men equal until they show me otherwise.
Yeah, so they give you a reason not to. Yeah.
And that was it. Then we take it to the next level.
Right. And then you're going to win.
Yeah.
So,
for sure.
But sometimes it had to go that way. Other times it was just, they meet me. Everybody's
Yeah.
can't believe, what a nice guy I was. In fact, Tegan Machado, which is #1 badass out of the Machado brothers, and never lost a fight. He never lost a fight. Jiu-jitsu guy from, he was from Brazil. He's got a big school in California, and he's on does my documentary. He goes, when I first saw this guy, I see him, and he's got this face. I know he's something, the way he talks, Brazilian. And, but he kind of scared me, I walk across the street if I see him. So, but he was great. He gave me a great interview on my documentary, and I told you he's a badass. But talking like that about me,
Yeah.
once I met him, I was over here with Mickey Rourke, and he says champagne means Sean Penn. I thought he was saying champagne. Champagne. And I said champagne, and I realized it's Sean Penn and Mickey Rourke over here. But he was a great guy, and he did a great interview for me. I mean, like I said, he's the #1 badass. And to say that about me, I'd cross the street. Then I met you. You were such a nice guy. I couldn't believe. You was like, you got this face, you're scary. And I'd rather cross the street than meet you in a dark alley.
Right, coming from him.
Yeah, coming from him.
Yeah.
So that was, made me really feel good.
And Dana, you're close with. Is
Yes,
that right?
Dana was very close with. The first people that had the UFC was, the Gracies.
Yeah.
The Gracies. Art Davey, who used to have all the Tough Man contests, him, and John Milius, the director.
Really?
John Milius is the one who designed the cage back in the day.
I had no idea about that.
Yes.
Wow.
So the Gracies
and John Milius did all the Conan movies and all of that. Yeah.
Yes, he did great movies. Actually, he had a stroke years ago and never came out of it. Never came out of it. He was a great director. We were supposed to do another war movie called Manila John. He wrote it. My friend Pina Tico, we were supposed to be in it, but he never came out of it. And he was a great director. And he's the one who came up with all those. I Smell Napalm in the Morning.
Really?
And Make My Day. With, that was him.
Really?
That was all him. Make My Day, everything. And just a great guy. But he designed the cage. And like it says,
the Octagon?
The Octagon. He designed it. He designed it. He's the one who designed it.
Wow.
And Art Davey was involved, and Hoyer and Gracie were the ones who owned it. And they've had it like probably 5 or 6 UFCs. I was at UFC 1 because Bill Wallace. I had a karate tournament in Denver, Colorado. That's where they had UFC 1, 1993, November 12th. Another thing, my daughter's birthday. I should have been home with her. I was out there fighting. And I went to the UFC 1. And then once Dana and the Fertittas took it over, Dana was training them in boxing, and they made him the president. And he used to give me 10 front row seats.
That's right, because that's what he was doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was training the Fertittas. And Lorenzo, and he was training them. They bought the, I think it was $1.5 million.
Wow.
They bought it from the Gracies and John. I think for $1.5 million, or maybe $2 million the most,
Look at it.
and they sold
Yeah.
it for $4 billion.
Yeah. That's a
Okay?
good
Go figure.
investment right there.
Yes. So when they first opened, of course, when they first started, Dana used to give me 10 front row seats
Wow.
for all the matches there, and there was only two places, MGM Grand and Mandalay Bay were the only two places that they fought. And then once it got bigger, then it went overseas and went to
Sure,
Abu Dhabi.
sure.
And went there. Of course, I didn't make those, but whenever it's in the T-Mobile Arena now, and I go to all of them. So, but he used to give me 10 front row seats. Then once I started bringing, because I brought a lot of actors there.
Sure.
People started seeing them. More people started going.
Sure.
Michael Clark Duncan was seeing it. Kevin James was a
Okay.
martial arts guy who trained with one of the Gracies too, I believe, or Machado, and they started going. Pamela Anderson was with me. Mike Tyson. They saw all these people, and they used to give me front row seats, put me on the screen all the time.
Sure,
Chuck
sure.
Zito, from Oz and
Yeah.
Sons of Anarchy and everything, and then more people started going. So now they didn't, show me anymore. They started showing these
Tell
other people. I
everybody
said,
else.
oh, here we go. Right?
In
So
the
then
back.
he gave me 5 front row seats, 5 fifth row seats.
Uh-oh.
Right? That started going all the way. Because what I used to do, I used to get 10. If I took 4 people with me, it was a lot. So I used to take the rest of the tickets. I would go all the way to the nosebleed section and find people. I would give them a ticket.
Yeah.
And so they could, sit
That's
next
cool.
to us.
Yeah.
Really cool.
And I realized the first time I went up there, and it was a girl there with her boyfriend. It was his birthday. And I went up there. She goes, it's his birthday. I says, well, here's 2 tickets. Come down. And they didn't realize it was the front row.
Right?
When they came down, it was like
Wow.
aesthetic.
I bet.
So people remember that their
Yeah,
whole
of
life.
course. Of course.
So I used to give the tickets away. And then, like I said, now I got 5 front row, 5 fifth row. Then after that, I got 5 front row. Then I went down to 3 front row. Then I went down to 2. I still get 2 front row seats.
Okay, 2.
You still
I
get
used to
'em.
tell Dana, I said, Dana, you used to give me 10 front row. Chuck,
What
back in
happened?
the day, I used to give you 100 front row because nobody came. So
That's
we
great.
we're still good friends today. And, and another friend of mine, Mike St. Cyprian from Vegas, he goes to all the UFCs. He gets, front rows. He gets this. He brings me also now. We go up on stage. I mean,
That's great.
yeah, they give him, gifts and everything. So he's a great guy, and he's big into sports. Big into sports. Wherever he goes, it's got to be the front row.
Yeah.
Basketball, front row, the court, whatever it
Of
is.
course, yeah.
Hockey, by the glass. Super Bowl, on the grass.
Yeah. On the sideline.
UFC,
The
front
grass.
row.
That's great.
Anything. Hockey, same thing.
Yeah.
Hockey, boxing, everything's front row. He's the best.
So what's your favorite wrestling story? And
My
then I'll let you go.
My favorite wrestling story?
Like that because you mentioned on some podcast running into Flair in Japan. Sounded like it might have been a good one.
I ran. Well, we were there. We were there when Bon Jovi and Joan Jett were there.
Okay.
So we went to, and Bon Jovi was nobody at the time. Nobody. And we went, I actually saw them at the Hard Rock Cafe in Tokyo, Japan. They came up to us. I'm John. I used to be in Screaming Mimi and another pretty face and this and that. So they said, we're playing tonight. Come. So myself and a few Hells Angels went because we were out there. And they were Bon Jovi. And we were in a limo. And the girls are going crazy, banging on the car and everything. And
Right.
Richie Sambora turns to me, goes, look how they're going crazy. He goes, people on my own block don't even know who I am. Imagine that. A year later, they became the biggest band.
Wow.
Now, I would have did all the security for them. But I went to jail in Japan.
Yeah.
And then I wound up doing 6 years.
So
But
is
I
that
think I would have
same
did
trip?
all the security for them if I was out. So I missed on that deal. And of course, Joan was playing and we they put us down. We were wanted in Japan, the United States knew we
Right,
were out there.
right.
We were on front cover of the Japanese Times, our pictures.
Oh my God.
So we went with Joan Jett. She happens to be playing on an army base. And we're in front of all these army guys and MPs and everything. I says, we're going to get busted over here instead of being bodyguards. We're going to get busted. So then they left, and we wound up waiting until our visas were over, and we wound up surrendering to the American Embassy, which I told you that story already, and was just crazy.
But so where does Ric Flair fit in?
Oh, so that's where we started talking. Okay.
He's in a limo.
Before, of course, we were staying at the same hotel where the wrestlers were.
Okay.
And before, of course, this all happened.
Yeah.
So Ric Flair was down there. And I said, hey, Rick. I said, Chuck Zito from the Hells Angels. He goes, hey, how you doing? I said, I'm a big fan of yours. I love wrestling, this and that. And we started talking.
Right.
And that's when, like I said, we were at the same hotel with the wrestlers, Ric Flair and everybody. And then a couple of days later, we wound up surrendering to the American Embassy.
So there's no great Rick story.
No great Rick
I
story.
was thinking.
I see him. We still, of course, friends. And, of course,
Yeah.
we were all, bawling our eyes out, at Hulk's funeral,
Yeah.
And it was crazy. That whole week was nuts because I was doing a show, a signing at Chiller with Michael Madsen. Michael died like 3 days before him or a week before him. So I had to fly out to California. I went to Michael Madsen's funeral. 2 days later, I flew to Florida and went to, Terry's funeral. And, of course, I saw, Jimmy Hart, everybody, was just they were so with Hulk and Terry for 40 years.
Yeah. Jimmy was.
Everybody was
I think
beside
his closest
themselves.
person.
Yes.
Yeah.
They did everything together.
Yeah.
And in fact, I had a TV show called, it was Roadhouse, Chuck Zito's American Roadhouse. It was like Patrick Swayze's Roadhouse.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was the cooler.
Okay.
So we would go in and we would fix all these bars up. I would take the bar over, fix it all up, change the names of them. And we did 6 episodes. 6 episodes. They shot and never aired it. It was for what channel was it for?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't pick it up anyway.
Yeah, they never picked it. We shot 6 episodes.
So they spent
but
all the
my
money.
last episode, I said, I'm always leery about grand reopenings because we have a reopening and everybody, Speed Channel. So
Okay.
I'm sorry, Speed Channel. It was for them. And we'd have a grand opening and all the people would come in. So I'm telling the 2 people, one was a carpenter and one was a bar girl, and the 2 owners of the bar we were at. I said, I'm always leery about grand reopenings. But tonight, I have my friends here who live nearby, and I'm not worried about any security tonight. And here they come. Out comes Hulk Hogan, Jimmy Hart, the Dudley Boys.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it was great.
That's
and
so
Hulk Hogan
fun.
would say, hey, we heard you guys trouble, but there's not going to be no trouble tonight, man. And everything else, and it was great. So they were talking, and that's in my documentary also, that part.
Oh, that's great.
And, and the show, the one we saw, Riding,
Yeah.
that's in it too.
Yeah, that's
so
cool.
it says the little story there, and it was great. Like I said, we miss Hulkster.
Well,
But
Chuck,
there's so many stories in this big city. I've got
that's
so
the thing.
many
I
of
could
them.
keep you here all night.
Sorry
but I
to
think,
keep you here all so
No,
long.
no. I'm very grateful that you would come and be a part of this and tell your stories. And, everybody has to tune into the documentary to hear
Yeah.
more, right?
They're going to, like I said, it should be by the end of the month, be on Amazon Prime. I'm going out June 16th. I'm doing a big movie called The Last Ride with Richard Greco, who wrote it. He was in 21 Jump Street years ago, if you remember him. He wrote it. He's directing it. It's called The Last Ride, about almost like Easy Rider, 2 guys on a road riding the whole time.
Wow.
And it's the first time I'm, the star of the movie. It's me and
Wow.
him. So basically, you're going to say Richard Greco, Chuck Zito in The Last Ride, also starring so-and-so. So that's going to be a big movie for me.
And when does that come out?
Well, that won't come out till next year because
Okay.
we're starting to film it. We start July 16th.
Okay.
And then I have to actually fly back on the 20th because as a child and watching Batman all the time, I wound up buying the 1966 Batmobile
No way.
from
That's
Barrett Jackson.
so cool.
So I've been working on that. That's in at Automat Interiors in Hicksville.
Wow.
They're having the 70th anniversary. The cars are going to be shown there. So I have to fly back one day to do the show, fly back the next day, Father's Day, and go to work again.
Wow.
So it's going to be pretty wild.
Yeah.
And that's day before Father's Day, no less.
Yeah.
The car show. So I'm going to go there. And since nobody talks to me no more, why be the father? So.
No. I really hope for you that.
Well, you know what? Once they see the documentary, I think, who
I
knows?
I hope it brings.
It's either going to open up the relationship or make it farther away.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah. Well, I hope
And
it opens it up in a
Because
good
I
way.
opened up my heart to everybody here, it's probably going to make me go further away now.
No,
after they
I
see
hope
this.
that's not. I hope that's not the case, and I hope you get to, meet your grandsons and.
Yeah, they're both grown. They're in their 20s, so I never met them before.
Yeah.
And
Since family means everything to you, I hope for you.
family
you
is
get
everything.
that.
My family comes first and foremost. I mean, I'm so grateful I have my mom at 94 years old, my two sisters. I have my nieces, my great nieces and nephews, and I'm always out there seeing them. I go out to my sisters because they live in the same house with my three great niece and nephew. I'm always out there. I take my '57 Chevy out there. I have a few cars,
Yeah.
and I go out there with that, and it's just a great time. And like I said, family's everything
Yeah.
to me. I think I want to let you guys go home because I could talk all night.
No, I
No,
love
I
it. I
have
love
a million
it.
Your
stories in
stories
this
are
big
the
city.
best.
Thank you so much, Chuck.
Thank you for inviting me.
No, I
And
just
thank you for that outside. That
No,
was
of
such a
course.
surprise.
absolutely.
I couldn't believe that.
Absolutely.
I couldn't believe that. I'm putting that on my Instagram. I'll tell you that. That's
Awesome. Well,
so-
I have nothing but respect for you.
Oh, thank you. Same here. Your
you know,
family,
and I've known
everybody,
you for such a long time.
Yes, we go way back.
Yeah.
Way back.
And you've always been the same.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank you so much. And Paul is great. I mean, I love him and so many people. It's just, we see each other at different events, different
yeah.
boxing things, everything.
It's so great.
All through the years. Yeah. It's great. So I count you as a dear friend.
Yes, same.
And nice to meet everybody. Nice to meet everyone here.
And good luck with the movie and the documentary and everything you have
Thank
going
you. Thank
on.
you. The movie's going to be great. I believe that's going to be great. And
Thank you.
I hope you didn't stay late because
Oh my God.
we've been at this podcast for a while.